We on the right are often bad at producing all of our arguments in a very logical state. The left is very good at producing their arguments in an emotive state, and they win. But let's find ways of turning that round so that we can win those debates. When I was in government in New Zealand, we were having problems with public schools, absolutely identical to the problems that I see in the United States. We undertook a major examination of the education system again, and we've done it many times before. And we asked those people who did that study to focus on where do we spend the resources and what do we get in terms of results. We found out that while we had doubled the amount of money in real dollars that we put into education in the preceding 20 years, we were getting a slightly worse result. When we asked the question if our schools were once good, and they were, and they're bad today, what changed? And the answer was we took control of the schools away from parents. So if that was the problem, the thing to do was reverse it. So we fired all of the school committees and all of the education boards, the whole lot of them. And we had the parents of the children at each school elect a board of trustees, and only the parents of the children at that school could vote. And we gave to that board of trustees a block of money to run the school. And we said to them, your job is to establish a contract with your local community, and you have to govern your school accordingly. You know, in 3 years, we had picked up from being about 16% below our international peers to being equal to our international peers, and in another 3 years we were 15 to 16% ahead. We also said at the same time, nobody, including government, has the right to make a parent send their child to a bad school. Note the way I phrased the argument. Nobody has the right to make a parent send their child to a bad school. We made that an issue of principle and a constitutional right kind of argument. And we won it. While the teachers' unions were highly opposed to the reforms that we were putting in place, it's pointless trying to argue with them. But saying, yeah, don't even try. Talk directly to the parents and say, could you make a better job of running this school? And the answer is yes. When we did that study of how money was spent, we found that for every dollar we spent on education, 70 cents was consumed in administration and 30 cents got spent inside the classroom. By getting rid of the education boards and the school boards and putting all of that money into the classroom, we reversed that so that today 66 cents in every dollar gets spent inside the classroom and only 30 cents is used in administration. There's some lessons there. What was the problem? Bureaucracy makes a bad job of running anything. Consumers are the people who know best what they want. Consumers in that case are parents. But let me take one of the other examples of dependency. New Zealand as an economy is very much dependent upon agriculture. And throughout the century and a half that we've existed, we supplied most of that product to the United Kingdom. But in the 60s, the United Kingdom decided that it was going to join the European community, and we lost that preferred market. And we compensated for that by giving to our farmers subsidies. By 1984, and I was a farmer, farmers were getting about 44% of their income in subsidies. And farmers were getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And their solution was to keep coming back to the government and asking for more money. In 1985, we took away all of the subsidies in total immediately. Now, if you think that about tough political choices, that's one of them. Farmers were pretty upset. Sure, they would be here too. But what actually happened as a result of doing that is that certainly farming went through a depression for 2 years. It started to come out the other side. And since then, farming has had its best economic time in history. We used to sell a carcass of lamb for about $12 on the world market. 5 years after taking away those subsidies, we were selling that same carcass of lamb, presented in an entirely different way, for $120 a carcass. What made the difference? The difference was there was nobody you could go to for a handout. You had to find better ways of being able to get better prices. My daughter and son-in-law are in dairy farming in New Zealand. Dairy farming in 1984, fully subsidised, produced 35 products from milk. Last year, dairy farming in New Zealand produced 2,200 products from milk. 96% of New Zealand's dairy product goes to export. To get dairy product into the United States, we have to pay a 96% tariff. To get cheese into Canada, we have to pay a 364% tariff. We still export to both countries, but not in large quantities. Even in spite of all of those barriers, ingenuity finds ways of being able to get over those barriers. Dairy farming has never been more prosperous than it is today in New Zealand, but it is very different. It is now all based upon what's a viable economic enterprise. My daughter and son-in-law milk 1,200 cows on 2 adjoining properties. Previously, a dairy farm milked about 145 cows. I don't care how much subsidy you get, you're not going to make 145 cows profitable. You've got to rethink it. There is also another thing that we need to address, and that is just a little bit of common sense would make a huge difference to the results. For example, I often say when I meet with politicians, just have as part of your litany, I won't fund anything that doesn't work. Pretty basic. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to fund it. There's a program that the federal government funds each year. It's called Even Start. For the last 4 years, the administration has asked for it. They've actually zeroed it out of the budget. The Department of Education has asked for it to be cancelled. It produces no measurable benefit whatsoever. The illusion of benefit, certainly. And a slush fund for people to play with, certainly. But each year, Congress puts the money back in, because nobody's prepared to face the reality that this might cost me votes. Okay, here's some different thinking. I used to be Minister of Labour in New Zealand, and one of the things that I was responsible for was running programs that put people back into work, employment type programs. When I inherited that portfolio, I inherited 34 different programs designed to put people back into work. They'd been researched and evaluated, and everybody thought they were nice. People liked being in the programs, and they got a lot of good feedback from the participants. The one thing they hadn't been audited for was how good are they at putting people into work. So I had them audited on the basis of how successful they were at putting people into work, and 30 of the 34 didn't work. So I cancelled them, and we put the resources into the 4 that did work. In year 1, we got 300% more people into work for 40% less money. 300% more people for 40% less money. I got a lot of flack for that. And the first people that called on me were the bishops led by the Cardinal. And the Cardinal's comment was, what you've done is disgraceful. We have all of these wonderful people who are working in these programs, and you've cancelled them. And I said to him, Your Eminence, I can refund those programs tomorrow. If I do, 80,000 people don't get jobs. You choose. And they sat in my office for an hour and they argued backwards and forwards, and in the end they had to reluctantly say, we think you're probably right, but we don't like it.